Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am your host, Cameron Hawkins, along with, as always, my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good today. Not the best day, but like a solid good day. How about you? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. For for our patrons, they already know the spiel, but for the public, they don't. I am a Kansas City football fan, so I am ecstatic that they are making it to their third Super Bowl in a row, and hopefully it is a three-peat, the first ever three-peat in the history of the sport. I know that this isn't a sports podcast, but I don't really care about sports outside of football, so I am super excited, and it has definitely made me smile throughout this week.
I will say, I'm not a sports person, but I do understand, as someone who grew up in Southern California when the Lakers 3P happened, I get it. I understand the energy that comes with that when your team is, into that.
That was 99 to 02, right?
Yep, probably. That sounds right.
Okay.
I think I was in middle
Okay.
school when it happened. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right then. Okay, yeah. It's not that I'm not interested in watching other sports, or I'm not I just have no skin in the game, I guess is the best way to explain it.
Sure.
Like
Yeah. I'm always an observer.
if I did support a basketball team, it would probably be the Lakers because I grew up in Vegas. But I don't really care. I loved watching Shaq when I was a kid. I like watching players.
Yeah.
When it comes to basketball, I don't really care about teams. Shaq is my favorite player because I just thought he was fun to watch. I do think Michael Jordan is the GOAT when it comes to basketball. And so just being in the place where the one team I really care about, who I never thought would ever make it to a Super Bowl, let alone at this point won 3 of them. This is amazing. I'm on a high. It's really hard to describe. So, but yeah, that's the intro to this podcast. Before we get into the news for the week, which we have a lot of, we recorded this at the perfect time because a big news story just broke out right before we recorded this.
Yeah, 5 minutes before we hopped on chat.
Yeah, exactly. So, great timing for us that we totally planned out. But before that, housekeeping. If you've been enjoying this show, please pause the podcast really quick. Go on to the podcast platform of your choice and leave us a 5-star review. You don't need to make any comments if you don't feel the need to, but if you can just give us a 5-star review and follow so that you get updated when new episodes drop every week, that'd be highly appreciated. That helps get us more exposure, and we want this podcast to grow. So we'd really appreciate it if you did that, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel but of the same name. You should be able to find it pretty easily because again, that just helps with the exposure of the podcast and getting our name out there. You can also support us on Patreon, where we have a bunch of rewards for those that subscribe to specific tiers. As of right now, our first monthly Q&A episode is out now. So if you're a patron, you're able to ask us questions that we answer in an exclusive podcast for our patrons. We also have perks where you get the episode a day early, where there's an exclusive Discord where you can hang out and talk about different JRPGs or really anything you want, of course. And we also have Campfire Catalog, which is our book club podcast. And the first episode is going to be on Chrono Trigger. So if you're like me and I've never played Chrono Trigger and you're like, dang, I want to play Chrono Trigger finally and listen to a podcast where we have experts and newbies on, Campfire Catalog. That's the podcast for you. And lastly, please go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and subscribe to this fine gentleman's channel so we can get him to 1 million subscribers before the end of the year. It is the year of the Switch 2. He's going to be doing a lot of content. This is he's going to be in his prime, Jordan in his prime type content.
Time to go at it, even though I didn't get in the damn raffle. I have to say it twice because not everyone's going to hear the Patreon Q&A. I lost the
Yes.
raffle. I know like 4 people who got in, so I'm probably gonna talk to some of them. Still make some stuff. But that was a bloodbath, man. I saw my whole timeline was just like didn't get in, didn't get in, didn't get in. The craziest one, because I don't know if you've like followed along with everyone that got denied. Kit and Krista, they applied because I didn't realize this. You could apply to multiple sessions if it was in different locations. So you could only do one session like at LA or one session in New York, but you could apply for both. Nothing stopped you from doing it. They applied to 8 and didn't get into any of them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They went like all out to just be like, we'll travel, like whatever, like let's do it. And not a single one.
Yeah, I only know 2 people that got into the New York one, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
I know 4 total, but like that's like seeing online. That's not even like personally. It's just like in general. I know 4 people.
I didn't get in either. And like, in all honesty, if I got in, just with like how like I'm at with life right now, probably wouldn't have been able to make it out. But I wanted to at least try, right? Like, let's see. You never know. You play it safe. Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter at this point. And there's still chances that they are gonna reach out to people and be like to media people and be like, hey, we want you to check this out.
We'll see.
But anyway,
we got some news. We got a lot of news. We can't be taking this much time at the start. We got to do some catch up right now.
We got some news. Yeah, so the first story is in regards to the Xbox Developer Direct. We got a roundup for you. Didn't expect this much coverage regarding Japanese and Eastern titles from Xbox, but that's what we got.
Here we are.
The first story is Ninja Gaiden 4 has been announced, and it's being co-developed by Platinum Games. It's coming out fall of 2025. The game is a direct sequel to Ninja Gaiden 3, and it is going to jump between 2 characters, the series classic Ryu Hayabusa and a new character called Yakumo. In an interview with Xbox Wire, Ninja Gaiden 4 director Yuji Nakao, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said, quote, "A significant amount of time has passed since Ninja Gaiden 3, and players will find themselves arriving in a gruesomely transformed Tokyo. One of the key themes of the story is the return of the Dark Dragon, which has plunged the city into chaos. Within these unsettling conditions, Yakumo will have to face off against his foes, as well as the formidable Master Ninja himself, Ryu Hayabusa." End quote. He also mentions that there is this, when it comes to new combat elements, that Yakumo is going to have this Blood Raven form, which Nakao defines as, quote, "a technique that manipulates the blood of oneself and enemies, transforming it into a massive weapon capable of slicing through multiple foes at once," end quote. So this got like a really meaty trailer. Like when they showed this trailer, I was like, they are showing so much. This game has to be close to being done. You know what I mean? What were your thoughts on it? I think you're more in the Ninja Gaiden camp than I am. I've played Ninja Gaiden 2 when I was back in high school, but like outside of that, I'm not super knowledgeable about the series.
I don't know if I'm like a big expert on Ninja Gaiden, but like, because I didn't really play the older ones, but I did play the Xbox ones a bunch, the 3D ones. 1 and 2 especially, I played a lot. 3, not quite as much. Like, I tried it out at launch, and like it was fine, but it wasn't quite as high as 2 was. Like 2 really was like the peak, which that's an important thing to talk about in a bit. But yeah, I mean, like Ninja Gaiden 4 being announced is so friggin' cool. Like for a lot of reasons, right? Because like 1, it's back, right? They're using that name again. It's been like 12 years, 13 years since 3 came out. We had some side games and stuff, but not like mainline. And like I think another thing that's huge too is, like we've talked about on this podcast, Platinum. Like no one really knew what Platinum was up to lately. A whole bunch of leadership was leaving. There was a bit of doom and gloom, and like I realize there's layers to this, and we can't just be like, "Oh, Ninja Gaiden 4, Platinum is saved." But like, that's cool. Like I think that's I'm excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I do like when Platinum kind of gets to do their own thing, but Ninja Gaiden 4 makes sense for Platinum. It's this super over the top action game, and it's funny because the creative director, or not the creative director, but the director of the game, did like make a comment about working with Platinum on this title. He said, quote, looking at the titles created by Platinum Games, we noticed clear differences in approach. While we emphasize flashy, impactful strikes and moment-to-moment experiences, the Ninja Gaiden series focuses on delivering refined and satisfying gameplay feel, culminating in an exceptionally polished overall action experience. This collaboration was a truly unique learning opportunity for us at Platinum Games, end quote. And I gotta agree with him.
Oh,
I gotta
no,
agree with him.
I have a whole rant ready, man. So. Finish your point. Sorry, I know I'm getting hyped. I'm getting amped from this.
I'm not saying that I don't dislike Platinum Games. Like, I love Bayonetta 2.
Yeah.
I love Metal Gear Rising. But I would also argue that I think that Platinum is more flash, less substance with its action.
Sure.
I think that the flashiness of a lot of Platinum games, not all, but a lot of Platinum games kind of cover base for the actual like gratifying feel that you get in action games.
Yeah. Well, and that's like I have a whole rant I want to do about this. So
please,
real quick, another thing as part of this announcement is they shadow dropped Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is a second remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2. It's really like the third or fourth remaster. That game's been re-released a few different ways because of different systems and such. But they re-released it again. It's been redone in Unreal Engine 5. And that's been what I've been playing this past week. So I want to talk a little bit more about there once we get to that segment. But I dived back in and I haven't touched it since like 2010, 2011. It's been a while. And man, like I forgot what we had. And I have so many thoughts about like where this style of action game has gone and why I'm so much more excited about Ninja Gaiden 4, because like if it brings back that style, like the worst timeline here is we get Ninja Gaiden 4 and then it like ends up committing to all the like current action game tropes, because like I don't dislike those. Like I like Souls-likes, I like Platinum action games, like those are good, I enjoy them, but like man, old Ninja Gaiden hit like way fucking different. Like it's just such a different feel. And yeah, we'll get to that with what we've been playing because there's a lot I want to talk about there. But the point is, I think Gaiden 4 is like a great fit. I think that was a great reveal for Xbox. Like it has Xbox history with it because even though 3D games did go multi-plat eventually, they were initially an Xbox thing. So like that being the place where they announced it, and really like honestly, that Direct probably my favorite Xbox presentation in the past like decade. Like those 4 games back to back, like ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, I won't say full on presentation, but developer direct, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, easily. I do, even presentation like that, like four
you
games.
Lost me there. You lost me there.
No, it was so good. It was.
I mean, like, I just think it's unfair to like compare a developer direct to a showcase.
No, but the reason I do it is because like, look, not to say Xbox hasn't done great showcases, but a lot of times the showcases I think Xbox has learned how to put on a great showcase, like vibe-wise, but then a lot of times you take a step back, you're like, none of these had dates. A lot of these were like CGI trailers. This was 4 games and a shadow drop bonus. All of them except for the revealed game got release dates, like locked in specific dates. And even the like new announced one is this year. It's fall. So like unless that suddenly gets pushed back, like in terms of the right mix of like good information, great looking games, and like stuff that is actionable. Like this is the showcase where they said everything's happening in the next year, except this time it is all happening in the next year.
Yeah, that's
and like
true.
That's huge to me. Like I think
that's fair. Like
such a cool balance.
No, like having a release date, and especially like release dates so soon, it's really hard not to be excited and be like and feel satisfied by that, delivering that message. So I totally get that. But yeah, so kind of like what you said, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black was revealed. It's out now. It's on PS5, Xbox Series platforms, Steam, and Xbox Game Pass for console and PC. So like if you have Xbox Game Pass, you got Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Go and play it. But it is also nice that like go on PlayStation. You can buy it and play it there too. PC, whatever you want to do. But outside of Ninja Gaiden, what I think we were like initially excited for, because we didn't know Ninja Gaiden was happening, is Expedition 33, baby. And we got a lot of really cool news about this, including a release date and collector's edition and some story elements. So first off, Expedition 33 is officially releasing on April 24th, 2025. It's it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series platforms, Game Pass, day one on Game Pass, and Steam. So that's very, very exciting. The probably the coolest thing, I don't want to say it's the coolest thing, I would probably say the most unexpected thing that this game revealed at the developer direct is that it has a world map. World maps are coming back, baby.
Dude,
Kevin,
2025 is the year of the world map. Like, between this and then when I was talking about it last week, Dynasty Warriors Origins, that has a world map. Like, we're seeing them. They're coming back right now. This is the year. I miss it.
Yeah. It looks great. And like, honestly, when I played Unicorn Overlord last year, it really like kind of gave me that remembrance of like of world maps and stuff like that. So seeing and it looks really good. It looks really pretty. I'm very excited about it. But Xbox Wire had an interview with the creative director, Guillaume Broche. I don't know how do you pronounce the name. I'm so sorry if I butchered
the
it.
first name is Guillaume.
Guillaume Broche. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds closer. Yeah, I'm not an expert on first names either, but from what that sounds right.
Guillaume Broche said, quote, "Since the day I started working on this project in Unreal Engine, I wanted a world map. I feel like it's such a cool thing that has almost completely disappeared from the face of the gaming industry. Like, nobody does that anymore. And for me, it was such a crucial and important part of what made the old school JRPGs unique. It's a sense of traveling and indicating that we are on an expedition, and we wanted the player to feel like that they're going on a grand journey. In the beginning, it seems extremely, extremely big, and it is very big. There are a lot of levels to find, hidden bosses to find, also on this world map. There's tons of secrets, and that's also what makes a world map super cool, because it's just like it feels like a completely different exploration game, and really makes you understand how much you're traveling." End quote. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think we kind of take world maps for granted. Because I think one of the I think I've talked about this like loosely on the podcast before, but one of I still think like that Ni no Kuni is like one of the most notable JRPGs to come out over the past like 15 years. And that game has a world map, and it's a really cool world map. And there are like certain moments that you get to in that game where just like the world map, it makes the world map even cooler. And it really does implement that sense of adventure of which their creative director is discussing. Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things too where I think it's also just like the absence of it, right? Like, I don't think that there's necessarily a like world map is intrinsically better than like actually being able to go location to location and it's all specifically detailed areas, because I feel like that was the vibe at one point, right, where like world maps were everywhere, and the first game that like did that, we were like, oh, that's like actually really cool that like, yeah, like everything's so detailed. But now it's like the pendulum swinging the other direction where it's like I forgot world maps were cool. Like, there were things with this, and like we still get them every now and then, especially with remakes and remasters. Like, obviously if you played Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, that has a world map. You've been playing the Pixel remasters, those are all world maps. Like, there are games now, but there's not like new games that are messing with that concept, right? And it adds, I think, such an interesting different concept of scale. Like it's sometimes when you have very detailed areas, it's cool how you get to see how in-depth everything is, but it also, I think, in some ways makes the world feel a little smaller. Whereas here, it's like, sure, you have to suspend disbelief in a bit, and you're like, big characters walking on a map that's, miniaturizing everything in some way. But I think it gives you an idea of like how big the world actually is and how far away some things are from one another. That I think is really cool. And as they're saying, right, there's ways of sneaking in things like hidden bosses or little areas to explore. I'm all for it. Like, at the end of the day, I love seeing people do stuff that just isn't like common for its time, and that even ties into a little bit what we were saying with Ninja Gaiden. Like, I like the other style approach too, but we haven't had this in a while, and I miss it. And so I'm so glad to see it coming back more often right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that I think it just also makes me want to explore that world even more and more and more because there's just so much interesting stuff that they have like pitched about what this game is.
Yeah.
And specifically with the story, we got like an actual kind of synopsis of what the story is in this game. Finally, I think this is the first time. I could be wrong there.
We got like a bare bones version of it, but this is much more detailed. Yeah.
And I I'm just like so in. Like it's like a very and they're very clear about it. Like this is a very simple idea,
Yeah.
but we're just going and we're gonna execute on that. And it is such an interesting, simple idea where like I'm not gonna like we didn't get like a an official synopsis of the game, but like I'm just gonna kind of like explain it out loud. But basically, in this world, there's a monolith that appears at some point, and then once a year, a paintress comes and puts a number on the monolith, and anyone who is that age or older is just evaporated from the world. They're just yeah, Thanos snapped, like for real. And the main character Gustav is 32 years old, and the next year, it's the year, and like as the time is going on, there's more and more expeditions of people who are trying to defeat the paintress, to find a way to stop the paintress from deleting more people from the world, and they never return. And so it hits a new year. The paintress hits the number 33 on the monolith, and Gustav, who was 32 years old, is like, I have a year to try and stop this paintress or I'm going to die. And I think, they tease in the kind of overview trailer that they did during the direct that a loved one, like probably his partner or like someone close to him, is affected by the paintress.
Yeah, like they were 34 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, they were 33 or 34. And so it's just like, and so he decides to go on the expedition, and it's just like, oh, what a smart idea, what a cool idea! I cannot wait for this game.
No, and like everything we're seeing too, like some of this was just more in depth things we've already seen before, but like the fact that it's doing that mix of turn-based with action type like interactions, just doing timings and then do different defensive options too, which is interesting because like we've had timed blocks before, but this is like, oh well, you can block or dodge or parry. I think it's like 3 options, and so I think depending on what move the enemy's doing, you do need to like pay attention to which one to do, so that ups the factor a little bit more. Really interesting way, I think, of just trying to up that combo of keeping it strictly turn-based, but having that extra interactive element to like really keep the action feeling a bit more tight. And yeah, I mean, just like all the gameplay looks gorgeous. We've talked a lot about how awesome it is to have this style of game again, this visual style again, brought to the genre.
Are you on the train officially that this game cannot be bad? Like this game comes out and there's no way that it's bad.
I very rarely take that strong of a stance because I never want to like I try my best to like keep my hype in check. Like I get it. I
no,
understand.
for sure,
and, like,
for sure.
I will say I am very close to that. Like I am overall like I am like 90% in. There's that small part of me that's like, okay, but what if? Just hold on. Like wait.
Yeah,
like, you were excited for Mighty Number 9 at 1.2. Like this happens.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah, because admittedly, like I do think that the only thing that really worries me from what I've seen so far, because there hasn't been any like previews for this game, if I remember correctly.
Nothing in depth that I've seen, though.
Yeah, there's been no real previews for this game. But the only thing that really worries me, or like potentially has me like kind of flagged, is a lot of the gameplay that we see. It feels like the world, like it feels like the encounters are far and few between. And I'm not saying that I need the like encounters frequently, but it seems a little bit less than what I would want. And they do give us a look in this overview, like this showcase of like there's the systems of like the combat, and like they go in depth on it. And I'm like, that seems really extensive for a game that has shown me so far that like the combat may be far and few between, when it comes to the encounters.
Mhm.
They could have done that on purpose, of course, right? Like they could just been like, oh, we're gonna defeat these enemies, and then we're going to record the exploration, so it doesn't feel like that the creatures are like are in the way of that, right? Like
Sure.
from a marketing standpoint.
I don't get that feeling too much, only because of, one of the other things we saw at this preview event was some of the back end a little bit, as far as like character building and like
Sure.
their skill trees and like a whole like additional like tag system thing that modifies stats. There's enough there that I'd be very surprised if it was like minimal fights, because if it was, it's like, so is it just every fight you immediately get like 3 skill points you get to distribute or something? Like there was enough there that I feel like you would need to have a reasonable encounter rate and like enemies to have that leveling system make sense. That might be reading too much into it, in either direction, right? Because it's like ultimately we're working with just cut up trailers and dev talk. But I don't know if I got that vibe as much from what we've seen.
Okay. I hope I'm wrong. But that's the only thing I'm just like, I feel like when we see like these trailers and we're seeing them explore the world, I don't really see any enemies. And so like that's like the thing that has kind of perked my ears up a little bit. But
that can also just be like dev builds and what they're recording and intentionally capturing. Like that happens all the time. Like
no, exactly. That's what I was saying. It was like it could have been intentional. So but yeah, and then outside of that, there is a collector's edition that is already sold out, everybody. Sorry about that.
Oops.
But I'm gonna go over it anyway because this is the JRPG podcast. We're physical collectors. We want to talk about this shit. So the collector's edition which is priced at $149.99. Only on PS5 for some reason. No Xbox collector's edition, despite the marketing backing.
Wild.
Yeah, very bizarre.
My suspicion on this is it looks like the collector's edition as well as the deluxe edition or whatever it's called, Steelbook edition. It looks like these are a GameStop specific thing. So I wonder if that was a GameStop call where they're in charge of the distribution for that, and they were like, we're not doing Xbox. Like, just do because there is a physical Xbox for standard, but the collector's editions are just PlayStation from the looks of it.
Yeah, but it comes with the full game. The Expeditioner's Journal, which is a 40-page art book, a steelbook featuring Gustave Mael, I think is how you say that name, and The Paintress. The digital deluxe upgrade pack featuring the Flowers collection, 6 outfits and hairstyles inspired by the flowers of Lumiere, along with 6 additional Gommage outfit variations, one for each playable character. Oh, so we know that there's 6 playable characters.
Hey.
Claire, a custom outfit for Mael, and Obscure, a custom outfit for Gustave, along with a 20.3 centimeter hand-painted resin monolith music box statuette. That is the collector's edition, but if you are sad that you missed out on the collector's edition, you already know that this exists or whatever, or if you or just like, oh, it's sad that it's sold out, that sounds like something I want, there is a deluxe edition called the Lumiere edition, which comes with everything that I just stated except for the music box statuette for only $69.99, but it is also only on PS5. So if you're like me who likes to primarily play JRPGs on Xbox, I'm just going to be playing this on Game Pass when it comes out, but I'm still getting that Lumiere edition because I want that steelbook. That's how it is. That's how it is. Next story. Hideaki Nishino has been appointed President and Chief Executive Officer of the Sony Group Corporation and Sony Interactive Entertainment. We got a press release just before we started recording tonight about this, and I'm just going to read all the relative things regarding this press release. So let's just get into it. Sony Group Corporation and Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE, the company behind PlayStation, today announced the appointment of Hideaki Nishino to the role of President and CEO effective April 1st, 2025. This marks an evolution designed to maximize synergies across SIE that was announced in May 2024, in which Nishino was appointed CEO of the Platform Business Group effective June 1st, 2024, alongside Herman Holst, who was appointed CEO of the Studio Business Group. Holst will continue to serve as CEO of the Studio Business Group and will report to Nishino. Nishino began his career at Sony in 2000 and currently serves as CEO, Platform Business Group, SIE. As CEO of Platform Business Group, Nishino led technology, products, services, and platform experience, in addition to overseeing third-party publisher and developer relations, and commercial operations, including sales and marketing of hardware, services, and peripherals. Prior to that role, he served as SVP, Platform Experience Group, and he said, quote, "I am truly honored to take the helm of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Technology and creativity are two of our biggest strengths as we continue to focus on developing experiences that deliver entertainment for everyone. We will continue to grow the PlayStation community in new ways such as IP expansion, while also delivering the best in technology innovation. I want to thank Herman for his expertise and leadership as he continues his role as CEO, Studio Business Group. I am deeply grateful for the PlayStation community and their continued support, and I'm very excited for what the future holds." Said Hideaki Nishino, CEO, Platform Business Group. Nishino will continue to serve as CEO of the Platform Business Group and as CEO of the Studio Business Group. Holst will continue to lead the development, publishing, and business operations of SIE's first-party content. He is also responsible for developing games across many devices, including PlayStation consoles and PCs, and bringing video game IP to new mediums through PlayStation Productions.
So the short version of this is that effectively these two were serving as co-CEOs, and they both mostly hold the same position as before, with the important difference that now, instead of kind of equal power, Holst reports to Nishino.
Yeah.
Like there is now oversight instead of them being like co-leaders.
Exactly. Because like they couldn't be co-CEOs forever. So it was definitely like a Band-Aid situation where they're trying to figure stuff out. And I'm sure it was just like, hey, let's put both these guys in charge and see who does a better job. And with all the stuff with Concord and all the stuff with live service stuff that PlayStation's been doing over the past years, like
there's not like hard verification of like whose fault is what, but there's a lot of reports and stories that at least specifically Concord was supposedly very much Holst's baby. Like that was like a project he was specifically very excited about and was part of the reason why there was so much investment. Again, there's not like a hard confirmation of that, but those are the stories that have come out in terms of that development cycle. And so I don't know how much that extends into the rest of the PlayStation Live service push, but anyone who's been paying attention to that hasn't been going great. Helldivers 2 was a success, but Concord isn't here anymore. I did get a Concord beanie as a gift. I should put that on right now. But we also know multiple projects that were in development have been canceled. There was a Last of Us live service project that was canceled. Supposedly, I'm forgetting the name right now. Bluepoint, is that the name? Bluepoint for
Bluepoint was working on a God of War live service game,
and that got canceled apparently.
Yeah.
It's something like they had 12, 13 live service games in development, and we know of 7 that have been canceled. And one that released, which was Helldivers. So, like, this is not a great track record right now for that approach. And so whether or not that was Holst's initiative primarily, if it was, that could be part of the reason why he is
I think it started with Jim Ryan.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it started with Jim Ryan, and then Jim Ryan was just like, y'all's problem now, and then just dipped out.
Good old Jim, why would anyone play a PS1 game, Ryan?
Yeah. But yeah, I just echoing everything that you said. It's just this is just news. There's nothing much to super report on outside of like, I think that PlayStation.
We can make our speculations of what this means, but like it's just you're gonna have to wait and see now.
I think it's a good sign. I think it's like, hey, PlayStation realizes that the live service stuff isn't really the course to go, and I think that there has been a lot of evidence of that with like Astrobot sweeping Game of the Year and like them just in general always being like single player big AAA experiences. Like, and I want to say like Helldivers 2, I think, is also a really great blueprint on how to do live service games right.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you're not doing like this kind of like Destiny esque MMO live service game, I like Helldivers where it's like, hey, you pay your fee of entry, there's stuff that you get just from like getting the game, but then they add stuff over time that like you don't need to buy in any shape or form, but if you want to, then you can with like the war bonds and stuff. And yeah, I just think that like Helldivers 2 was a great example of like what a lot of big games should follow to make a live service game that doesn't feel like yucky. You know what I mean?
Sure. And what I think too, like my stance on live service, because I personally don't really care about live service, like in general. There's a couple I've given a shot and I dive into, but it's just not my scene. But I will say, as like an outside observer of the genre and games that have come out of it, I think sometimes people have the reaction to be like live service bad, and that's not necessarily the case. I think it's just that where a lot of the problem comes from is getting teams to make live service games because you think you need to make a live service game. I think a lot of times that we see successful live service, it's when it's from teams that are actually interested in the concept of making a live service thing and building a community out of that.
That's true.
Versus like, hey, Bluepoint, you've made a lot of excellent remasters of single player games. We're going to have you make live service God of War. What? I mean, it's the same thing that happened with, this was before Xbox had acquired them, but that was the whole thing with Redfall, where Redfall was made by a team that traditionally made single-player focused games, and leadership decided, what if we made a live service, multiplayer, action, whatever, and we're going to like try and make our formula work in this framework. And a lot of the staff went, I don't want to do that. And that was a lot of internal strife as a result, and we saw how that game ended up because there was only so much that could be salvaged once directions changed. So yeah, like I understand the like fear of live service and being mad at it. I guess my main point is like I think it's cool if there's still like one or two in development, but I hope it's ones that are like actually interested in making that, and that's the push. It's not just we have an initiative where we have 13 titles in development because we need one of these to work.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. The last stories that we have are kind of like we're just like punching through these. We're just blitzing through these. They're just like things worth knowing, but nothing really like deep to talk about here. First being Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time, got a PlayStation page published that was quickly taken down. This game was announced through a Nintendo Direct last year, 2 years ago, and as far as we knew at the point, we expected it to be a Switch exclusive because the first Fantasy Life was on the 3DS. It was a Nintendo exclusive, but seemingly this one's going to be multi-platform. Yeah, there's that. And then
Awesome.
Next, this one we might actually talk about a little bit. We might talk about this one a little bit. Sega has re-registered Skies of Arcadia trademark.
Okay, so look.
Is it
There's
happening?
There's
Is
a
it
lot of
happening,
reasons.
Kevin?
There are a lot of reasons to re-register a trademark.
Yes.
All kinds of reasons. There could be a merch push. There could just be they decided they didn't know anyone to like snatch up the name. It could be because there's some like announcements and plans or whatever that are just like totally innocuous side things. A lot of things that could not necessarily be a remaster or remake. On the other hand, holy shit. like I hope, I would like it to be. The thing I realized too, after we found out about this trademark refiling, it's the 25th anniversary this year. The game originally came out in Japan, October of 2000. So we are at the 25th anniversary of that original release. Which again, maybe that's why they wanted to refile, because they have an anniversary celebration and there's some merch drop or something. But also, you could maybe release a game as part of that. Like Sega's been reviving a lot of stuff lately. Like, not necessarily remasters, but like we've been getting, they announced they're doing another Golden Axe. They announced they're doing like another Crazy Taxi. There's stuff happening with their older IPs. So,
do you think it would just be a remaster port? Do you think it would be a remake? Do you think it would be a sequel? What are your feelings on that? If it were to happen,
I lean towards remaster.
Okay.
Like remake would be cool, but I don't think. I feel like remake would be a larger budget project that I don't think would necessarily be the priority for something that is a cult classic from 25 years ago. Like there are dozens of us. The fans exist, but like I don't know if they see the market demand to like really invest that much. And honestly, I think I would be happy with just like a solid remaster that could be like a definitive version of the game that's accessible now, because that is a game that exists on 2 consoles, and neither of them are easy to collect for.
Yeah.
Dreamcast and GameCube. It is expensive either way, and that's just rough to pick up. So just having some way to access that on current, and I would love if that like signaled further interest down the line, right? Like I would love if we got a remaster, remake, whatever, and then it's like maybe we do another one because people bought this. Yeah, I feel I lean towards remaster.
I agree with you. I think remaster would be the most likely, but man, a remake would be cool. If
It would
was
be
like
cool.
like a 1-for-1 remake, that would be very cool.
I'm not opposed. I would not be angry at that.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see it, but yeah.
I agree with you. Next thing, Bandai Namco files new Tales of the Abyss trademark. Now, here's the thing with this, for me, is that Tales of the Abyss was remade. Was it a remake or was it a port? On the 3DS.
Sorry, I'm choking on water. What was the question?
Tales of the Abyss, was it a remake or just a port on the 3DS?
I don't honestly know off the top of my head. I want to say it was primarily a port, but there might have been like some bonus little content and stuff. But it wasn't like a full blown like everything's different. No.
Yeah, so it looks like it was a port, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering. So, it's one of those things for me where I personally, and I've said this time and time again, like Tales of the Abyss is probably like the last game I care about being remastered because it's on the 3DS, which yes, that isn't modern gen, but it is close enough where I'm like, I'm not particularly worried about that versus
It's also
some other games.
surprisingly not that hard to buy. I was just looking at VGP.
Yeah, it's like $50, right? It's not that much.
And there's like active reprints still available. They're like even cheaper, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I have my copy. I have a copy already. And so like I can understand the sense of like, oh, this is like this will probably be the easiest game to port because we already remastered it. We already ported it. Actually, I don't think the 3DS is a remaster, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's already been like moved over before. And so cool. Like I'm never gonna be mad about a new Tales getting ported. I just like think that this for me personally was like kind of bottom of the barrel. Like okay, you know, we'll get this eventually.
Yeah, and I think too, like I think though, like even if it is the next one up, especially with how we just got Grace's F and we're already hearing this news like kind of rumbling right now. Again, they talked up at the end of last year how like we really want to get on top of the remastering and releasing more titles. So like it might not be that long of a wait after that to get to like Zillia or something else. Like I think they're going to work their way through a lot of the easier 3D titles. Like I think PS2, PS3, those are going to be just all brought up to recent levels. Maybe not Legendia. There was not a ton of love for that one. And then we'll see if they maybe get a little weirder with it. Because I agree in that like Abyss is cool. It's a great game, but it's easier to play right now. Versus like me, I want them to do like, hey, you guys want to maybe like finally translate and port over like the PS2 version of Destiny and then actual Destiny 2? That'd be cool because we never got that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Abyss makes sense. It's a great game. It's arguably one of the best ones in the series. So like, I get it.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard good things about it. Next thing is a few episodes ago we were talking about like how a bunch of PlayStation Platinum Games devs were leaving. Some notable talent there. And we have a small update on one of them. Takehisa Tara, who was the director of Astral Chain, is seemingly working at a new company called Eel Game Studio, according to their personal Facebook page. Don't know. This is a new company. We don't know like what they've worked on before. So who knows if this is a company that he has started up on his own. We know nothing as of right now about that. So, but a small little update there. NIS president Tetsuhisa Seko passed away at the age of 55, seemingly unexpectedly. We don't really know anything outside of that he's passed away. Our thoughts are with NIS and Seko's family, and that sucks.
Yeah,
So I don't know what else to say.
Like that's not like young, but that's not old. Like that is still way too young of an age. Like that's rough.
Yeah. But we wanted to mention it and give our condolences. Next thing, Rise of the Ronin is coming to Steam on March 11th. For those that have been waiting to play that on Steam, Rise of the Ronin is a okay game.
I will say though, like that's a busy year for Koei Tecmo because like
They're
Ninja
having a
Gaiden
banger year.
2 Black, Ninja Gaiden 4, Dynasty Warriors Origins, and this. Like, I mean, I know it already released on PlayStation, but still, like it's a port and a new release on another platform. Like, this is a busy year for them. Like, I feel like I don't think Koei Tecmo like doesn't have output, but this feels like a heavier year. Is Atelier this year too? Like,
yeah,
is there
it's
new
in
Atelier?
March.
Yeah, they got output this year. Like,
I will say this about Rise of the Ronin. I think it is like, I don't think it's like the closest game, but if you really like Sekiro, I think that the combat kind of replicates
it's like
it a little
reminiscent
bit.
of a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of the thing with Team Ninja, like late in these later years, and I'm gonna rant about this a little bit with Ninja Gaiden, because like even when they did Neo, not that it's the same as Dark Souls, but you can tell that was them looking at that style of combat, being like, okay, what's our take on this, And so I could absolutely see Rise of the Ronin being a similar situation where it's like, okay, it's been a couple years now, a few years since Sekiro. Here's how that did things differently. Like, what's kind of our spin and approach on that as well? Like, I feel like they've really looked at FromSoft lately for inspiration, and not that they're just like copying. Like, there is work put into making it their own style of it. Because like Neo combat is fantastic. I'm not a huge fan of Neo for reasons of like like I don't love Souls likes for their combat. I love them for a lot of different reasons. But like that is a trend with them these last few years that would track.
Yeah, again, like I don't think Rise of the Ronin is a bad game. I just I actually thought like it had a lot of potential in the early hours, and then it just kind of like lulled out to be like, okay, this is like a solid like 7 out of 10 like open world game, but like there's so many open world games at this point that it's just like it's hard to like recommend Rise of the Ronin if you're trying to get like that open world itch.
Right. There's other options at this point. Like there's a lot of them.
On top of that, Assassin's Creed Shadows is dropping in February, and like that's gonna
Ghost of Yotei is also like probably this year. And
that's coming out this year probably.
And
so
if you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, like you might as well do that too. Like it's
100%. Like I have my issues with the Ghost of Tsushima, but like I'm actually kind of in that weird camp where like Ghost of Tsushima is like, even though I have issues with it, like it's still probably one of my more favorite first party PlayStation games. Sure. Which I don't think is a popular opinion. I feel like as time has gone on, like that game has become more and more divisive, and I don't really understand. Yeah. Like I mean, because when it came out, like I know some people that really liked it, and I thought some people thought that did not like that game. I knew people
that had problems with it, but even they were like, "Oh no, but this is awesome." Like I have specific things I want to make sure I let the people know, but overall, I still think it's awesome. Like I knew a few people that had like specific complaints, but like still loved it.
Yeah, and I really like it.
Outright hated.
I really like it more for the exploration, the open worldness of it. Like I don't think Jin is a particularly interesting character in my opinion. And I also think that the combat isn't, the stances like the combat's just inconsistent for me. I think it's a lot better when you're in doing the duels. I think the duels like is where the combat is at its best. But when you're fighting hordes of enemies or like a group of enemies, you can really see
17 times.
Yeah, you can really see the holes in the combat system there. But I still really like Ghost of Tsushima. Anyway, back to Koei Tecmo. They recently shared new lifetime total units sold for several franchises. We got Dynasty Warriors, 21 million. Nobunaga's Ambition, 10 million. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is?
That's much bigger in Japan than here. That's like a long running series. So, you know what Pokemon Conquest is?
Yeah.
Pokemon Conquest is literally like they did a collaboration to make a Nobunaga's Ambition game, but with Pokemon. So it's that style of like tactical, but it's a big series in Japan. Like I think we've gotten a couple of them out here, but not a lot.
Huh, interesting. So it's kind of like the Yokai Watch for Koei Tecmo.
A little bit like older. Like I mean, I feel like the series has been going on since like the 90s. Like it's an old like big series. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Samurai Warriors, 8 million. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, 8 million. Ninja Gaiden, 7.5 million. Neo, 7.5 million. Atelier, 7.5 million. and Fallen Dynasty 5 million. Which is really impressive considering that's only the one game, right?
That's the
5
one.
million?
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement for that too when it's coming out. Like I can see it.
Yeah. But now we're gonna get into what we've been playing this week. Kevin,
Yeah,
you've been playing some Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Talk
I
to me about it.
have, and God, did I miss it and not realize that I did. Like I legitimately like I described. So I went on a small rant about this on socials. Like after I got through like the first couple stages. I haven't finished it yet. It's not a very long game. It's like 9-10 hours. I think I'm like 6 hours in, so I've got a little bit more to do. But it was like a Ratatouille moment, if you know what I mean, right? Like the
Where,
critic
like when he eats the
like,
food, it tastes like his mom's food.
yeah, like that's what it was for me. Because like I was playing it, and look, like it does show its age a little bit. It's not like there's rough edges and there's things that have been refined since then, but it handles so much differently from any action game I've played in the last like 12 years. Like it's just like it feels like something we've lost and haven't had anything fill the space of. Like the only game that I think even comes close and it's still its own style would be like DMC5. Because Devil May Cry is like not the same thing, but I feel it's like a closer relative than what we've been seeing with like Souls-like inspired combat, and like how God of War and Star Wars have all like translated their versions of that. Like there's a certain style of pacing and feel that has become really prevalent and very common across a lot of games. And Ninja Gaiden 2 doesn't handle like any of them. Like it's hit a point with me where like I was playing it and look, I know a lot of people love this game and I understand it's a good game, but there's this intrusive thought I was having while playing where I was like, we gave this up for Neo. Like this is what like we decided like, oh, Neo is totally worth abandoning this formula and approach and doing our own thing. Like it just like it's so different and so good because there's this frantic energy in it that I don't feel really in any current action games. Because even like the ones that people talk about how difficult they are or how like crazy they can get, there's always this sense of rhythm and pacing to some things where it's like, oh, there's a group of enemies, but really only 2 are going to maybe run up and attack you. And there's going to be a couple that maybe circle and wait a little bit or pace it out. Ninja Gaiden, those dudes don't give a fuck. Like, you'll have 8 dudes all rush you and just keep the aggro up the whole time. And you need to go on the offensive back or you're just going to get swarmed. Like, there's no choice. Like, you have to figure out what you're doing and respond. The tutorial of that game is it throws you in a fight against 4 hyper-aggressive NPCs and says, X is light attack, Y is strong attack, A is jump. Figure it out. Like it doesn't like there's so much more depth to the combat that they don't teach you right away, and you do get like snippets of later on, but it really does feel like you're just thrown the deep end of this way faster paced, much more chaotic style action that feels so good to play. Like there's this satisfying reactivity to all the combat that I just haven't gotten before. Like there's satisfaction in the other ones, like sure, learning rhythms and landing a good parry, great. Takedown animation's cool, but like the stuff you do in this game as far as just trying to keep the pressure on enemies and staying out of their way, and also its own very brutal but still fast finishers that keep the action moving, like I missed it, and I didn't realize how much I missed it until I was playing. Like, just I don't think anything has hit remotely the same way. And again, not that the other stuff isn't good, it's just I haven't had this specific thing in so long, and it's like, why did we abandon this? Like, why has no one else picked this back up yet?
That's cool. I played Ninja Gaiden 2 a little bit in high school. I didn't finish it, but I played like a good chunk of it, and like I was told like, yo, this game's hard as fuck. Like you're in for a bad time. And it was challenging. It was definitely challenging.
It's tough.
But it's very, very fun. And I do want to play the remake at some point this year, or remaster, whichever it is. Because it looks like a remake. It look like visually, like it feels like it's a remake.
Because it's new models and everything, because it's UE5, so it is like visually, it is a whole new game. It feels very similar to Sigma, which was like the last remaster, but it did adjust and change some things from that as well. I would say overall, I like how it feels more than Sigma. but it is also on the easier side as well. That was one of the things with the Sigma remaster is that like they toned down the difficulty from original 2, which by the way, if you want to play original 2, that is on Xbox back and pat. So like if you want to have like the original
Yeah.
distilled essence, that's an option. Because that game is hard. Like that, like if you do that game on its
Yeah.
highest difficulty, like anyone who complains about Dark Souls games being difficult, no, like dive into like Ninja Master mode, and it is so ridiculous. It has broken so many people.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to sound like that guy, but like when I first played Demon Souls on the PS5, and I know that's like one of the easier quote unquote Souls games. I'm like, this isn't that difficult. Like, I don't understand like the.
Yeah, it's a different approach to difficulty, I think, and just like because there's a lot of things in that game where it's just you have to learn, and once you learn, it's not that bad, but it's going to do a lot of things to you without teaching you, and you have to pick that up. You know, learning enemy placements and how certain enemies attacks read and that kind of thing. Dark Souls, like to me, Dark Souls is a learning game. It's pattern recognition and figuring out how everything works, and then it's actually fairly forgiving once you have that going for you.
I
With
think
some
so
exceptions,
too.
millennia
Especially when you see like all these like speed runs where it's just like the craziest stuff. They're doing the craziest stuff, and it's all just because it's pattern memorization.
Yeah, getting all the parries down, using the simplest equipment. Like, who cares? Like, just take them out. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have finished Final Fantasy 2. And I just need to say that to all the motherfuckers out here that told me, "Oh, Final Fantasy 2 is the worst Final Fantasy." Y'all are wrong.
Now, I do want to, now, as you say this, I want to immediately preface something here. You have played arguably the most playable, best version of this game.
I don't
Like,
care.
that released only however many years ago. Like everyone's talking about their experiences, like playing an NES emulator or like going with, the PS1 version, maybe GBA, which have also made their own adjustments and changes. But like, you definitely played like the most accessible version of that game. Because I do think. Well, let me hear your thoughts before I start to like. Yeah, go.
So the usage growth stuff to level up. That was the thing that was like the big con that people told me about. And like, I'm sure that it did get rebalanced and things like that.
Very much so.
And I'm sure that would have like tainted like the experience. But just as a like just for the set, like the adventure and the story, and all that stuff is so good. Like,
yeah,
I genuinely think, and it would never happen. But give me a Final Fantasy 2 remake just with remake combat. Just like, because here's the thing. We can't not use that combat system after the remake project's over. It's too perfect. It's too perfect for y'all to just throw that in the trash after. So why don't you just remake an older Final Fantasy game and put it in there? You know what I mean? That's what I want. Because like the thing is like Final Fantasy 2 has like so many great moments in it. So many like it feels like that it, because it's only I beat it in like 13 hours.
It's not super long, yeah.
I beat it in 13 hours. And granted, that was like I had to walk through, and like it was mainly for the dungeons and stuff. And even then, the dungeons really weren't that bad. It was like,
and Pix Remaster is less grindy too. Like there's a few things it does that make the leveling system a bit faster and more reliable.
Yeah, and it's like it feels like Sakaguchi was like, hey, every like hour and a half, I want something super eventful to happen, and it does, and it's something that's always just like, oh shit, like they did that. Oh shit, they were willing, like they went there with this, like
not to get really too into spoilers, but like a thing that happens a lot in that game is you have your main cast of characters, which there are 3 of, and then you have a 4th slot, and multiple characters fill that slot over time, and not all of them have the happiest endings. You almost feel bad for whoever's in the 4th slot. Where you're like, I don't know how this is gonna go for you, man. Like, we're gonna find out.
Yeah,
they're not all tragic, but a lot of them are.
It's a coin flip. It's really a coin flip as to like what's gonna happen to you. And I'm just like picturing like all these like really cool moments where that happen in the story, or where I'm just like, man, like if this happened in a remake, like a 7 remakes type presentation, it would just be incredible. It would just be an incredible adventure.
No, the
And
writing in that game is fantastic. And like a lot of times people credit like 4 specifically as being the one where like Final Fantasy developed having like real plot arcs and story. But that's also usually a very like Western bias standpoint of like
because
we
that
didn't get
was our Final Fantasy 2
yeah,
was
that was
4,
our 2.
so
But like really the original 2 that we never got, like more so than 1 and 3 that came after it, like has a very structured story with some really interesting events and also a little more grounded than some of the other ones. Like you still get into people with crazy godlike powers, but it's not quite the exact same formula of like attack and dethrone god.
yeah. And I think that like what it would like a hypothetical remake would need to do is definitely like flesh out the party members a bit more, right? Because like Maria is like because it's like Firion, Maria, and Guy, and like Maria is like she's not like a damsel in distress, but she's more like a character that like she doesn't want like conflict, so she's kind of like
Right.
always this purveyor of like let's stop, let's not fight, like that type of thing.
Maybe
And
not
then
stab these people.
Guy is supposed to be like this like there's nothing going on upstairs. Like he doesn't speak in complete English or in complete languages, but he can talk to I think it was like squirrels or giants or like
Yeah,
there's like
he's
he can
very
talk
much
to
more like he's like the friendly, gentle giant trope. Like he's the human that's
yeah.
huge in muscles and you would think is intimidating, but then he's like feeding all the local wildlife, and his best friends are like little critters. Yeah, he's very much that archetype like concept.
Yeah, and it's fun it's funny and it's charming and like and I just really and like the way that the game starts is really cool. And again, there's just so many moments throughout that like I was just like, oh shit, that like I did not expect this to happen in a game this old. Also a lot of the Final Fantasy creatures that like we kind of recognize as series staples, they start in Final Fantasy 2. Like the behemoth, it shows up in Final Fantasy 2. And
Yeah,
it's just like this is so cool. Like I I just feel so blindsided by people that have played this game and said like, "Oh, this game is garbage." I'm like, "This game rocks. Like this game is really good."
yeah.
And
I mean,
I want a remake. I want a major like remake retelling of this game because it would be epic. It would be epic.
I actually do agree. Like I think the big thing about 2 is that especially in older versions, the moment to moment gameplay is just very painful in the older ones, especially
Mhm.
because like the way certain mechanics worked out and the way that the leveling system worked in those older ones and was tweaked differently, there were a lot of choices that could end up causing you to level very slowly, especially if you don't look up how things actually work. Like a big change in Pixel Remaster. I actually just found this out. I didn't know this, but it is a very important tweak. So you know how your stats randomly go up based on what happens in battle?
Yeah.
In previous games versions of it, your health stat would only have a chance of increasing based on what HP you started the fight at versus what you ended it at. It didn't matter how much damage you took, it just mattered did you end the fight in worse condition. Whereas the remaster goes off of how much damage you took in the fight, which would cause it to proc way more often because obviously you're always getting hit and taking damage. You're not worried like healing, like of course you're going to heal. Why would you penalize doing that in terms of character growth? And so there's just lots of adjustments and little things like that in the older version where like the most effective way to play it would be to take time grinding and have your own characters beat each other up while standing in front of weak enemies. And it was just it was a game that kind of forced you to grind in a not actually good way that was just not satisfying. That caused a lot of people to bounce off it and not really get to the real meat of it. Like I think most people who really hate 2 either just hated the combat that much the entire time, or they got like 2 hours in and were like, I can't. I don't. This is dog shit. I'm out. Like I
No, that
really
makes
think that's how a
sense.
lot of the reactions to it are. Because yeah, the writing in it is great. The mechanics are not, and I think depending on how much you weigh those two things, really impacts that experience, or at least what your final review number is.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can definitely see that. From what you're telling me. And it was actually really funny because like when I got to the final boss, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to beat this final boss where I'm at currently. Because like you get your last like fourth slot party member right before the final dungeon, and they don't have really any stats ready for like anything. So you're basically like starting off fresh, a fresh character at the end of the game, and I'm just like, oh, well, this sucks. Um, and so I lost my first time against the final boss. And then I saw in the walkthroughs like, oh, use this weapon and it's super effective against the boss. I was like, okay. And I look in my like inventory and I have the weapon, but it's like the weakest weapon that I have in my inventory. And so I give it to like one of my characters. I give it to like the fourth party member because I just thought it would be weak. And I was like, okay,
Sure.
you know, like sure. And like, and just for like context, like I was probably doing, depending on like the party member, I was probably doing like 400 to 800 damage an attack. Um, and the final boss was supposed to have somewhere between 10 to 15,000 health. That dude swung that sword and did like 1,800, and I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck? Well, if I was like, if we don't beat him this time, I'm giving this sword to my best character, and he's gonna just fucking destroy this kid. But thankfully, I won on that second like turnaround. But Jesus Christ, I was shook. I was like, why is this so effective? But yeah, that was a really funny experience that I had at the very end of the game. But yeah, Final Fantasy 2, banger. Absolute banger. If you have the Pixel remaster, you should play that shit soon because it's a really good game.
That is on my to-do list because the last time I played through it was the PS1 version, I want to say. I never ended up picking up Dawn of Souls, which was the GBA one. And I didn't get the PS. Actually, I think I got the PSP one, and it's just wrapped on my shelf because I just got it for super cheap when like GameStop was getting rid of stuff. So yeah, I haven't played it since PS1. So I definitely want to give the Pixel remaster version a shot because I've only heard great like as I understand it, as far as like what games really benefited from the Pixel remaster treatment, like two really benefited like the most. Like the glow up is real on that one.
We'll see once I get through all 6 of them, but
Yeah.
I'll be inclined to agree ignorantly because it was really really good. But now we get into the topic of the show.
Topic of the show.
And it sounded like you're about to start singing a song.
We
Like,
need
topic of the show. Topic of the show. It's the topic of the show.
Yeah.
What are the best JRPG parties? Kevin, I'm gonna let you start on this one.
Oh, so many. Truth be told, we're doing this topic a little off the top of our heads today. I didn't make a list. Did you make a list for this one? Because we basically agreed on this shortly before.
I definitely have some in mind for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, but like it's like off the top of head. It's not like you did like your full research of like what's every
Nah.
JRPG I played. Yeah, this is like what's occurring. So I think one of the first ones I usually think about. I don't know if this is necessarily the best, but it always stands out to me in my memory. I've always really loved Final Fantasy X's cast. And a large reason for that is that we talked about this a little bit, I think in maybe the first episode. I feel like more than a lot of other Final Fantasy titles, 10 really makes the whole cast feel consistently relevant and important. Like there's never a character that joins midway through because reasons and then they're just still there through the end hanging out. You know, like everyone has a relationship and reason to be with the rest of the party. They all have like character arcs throughout the entire game. There is like consistent moments where everyone matters, and I feel like more than any other Final Fantasy, like the whole cast really comes to life in that one. Not that I don't love casts of other ones, like FF7's great, especially in the remake where we get a little extra personality out of some folks. I love the cast for 9, but even with 9, I feel like 4 party members matter a lot more than the other 4. But 10 really has this great feeling, I think, of like how the party all develops together and has this like relationship and bond for the whole journey. And so that's always been like a really big one for me when it comes to Final Fantasy specifically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know Orin, and like Titus and Yuna, and I know there's like that other girl with a bunch of belts,
Lulu.
Lulu. Yes,
Yep.
yes, and then Waka. Like, I know a lot of that cast. And again, it's been a minute since I played Final Fantasy X, and which is why I don't like remember a whole lot of what you're talking about. But like, I do remember. I actually I started a playthrough a few years ago on FF10, and I could immediately tell like, oh, this is like a very good party. This is the
Yep.
way that they bounce off each other is really good, and I'm really enjoying the kind of banter between the two, like between these characters and stuff like that. So I'm inclined, and 10 is obviously a very beloved JRPG, so I am inclined to believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's really hard not to. I'm gonna get the easy stuff out of the way. I'm gonna
Sure.
get the easy
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, we'll go back and forth.
I think, in particularly, I think the first two parties in the Trail series are fantastic. I've already kind of talked about the Liberal crew and how I think that party just kind of encapsulate not just Liberal but the the continent of Zemuria at large, where you have like different party members have come from different countries, and you kind of learn about those different countries through engaging with them and characters talking with them, and it just makes everything feel so realized. And on top of them just being charming characters, and like when you find out like not just like where they're from, but like the actual roles that they play in the world at large is really, really cool. And I still think about like those type of moments like all the time. And then there's the SSS from the Crossbell arc, like, Lloyd, Ellie, Tio, and Randy, Noel and Wazzy are like in there as well. But
Don't know, but I will know soon. This year, maybe.
yeah, that's true. And I like them because I think what the Crossbell arc does the best of the series, and just like what the SSS represents is just like one, like what it means to like actually be a good cop, be a good detective, like what that means, and like but also just like the sense of community and working to protect your home, because Crossbell is such a like it's an independent state, but it's just like it's so small compared to like the rest of the world at large that like everything just feels so much more intimate. And so and just like how these characters like basically um how strongly they like don't really vibe with each other in the beginning, and then like by the end of it they're just like this big happy family. It's just so uh it's just so compelling, and they all have like they all have like these different backgrounds that play a large part of the world at large. It's really, really great just how that series in general is able to um create these characters and just make them engaging in and of themselves, and then like you learn, oh, they actually play a bigger role than just what we know them of, in a way that like, and you can say that like a lot of JRPGs do that, but like I think that like the way that they do it in Trails is like unlike any other franchise, without going into spoilers, of course. And I also like, even though I'm not a huge fan of like Reen as the main protagonist in the Cold Steel games comparatively to like Estelle or Lloyd or even Van in the newest arc. I think that Class 7 is really cool, and like how those characters all have these different different backgrounds, different interests and histories, but they all are like connected to major players in Erebonia. Like Elliot, like he's like a musician, he cares about music, but his dad is like the general of the of the Erebonian army, and like you think that he would be like this super like uptight, stern individual, but he loves his son. Like he like just like when you meet him, like his guard drops and he is just like a gosh, like what it he's like this embarrassing dad. Like there's just like think of like if the worst way your dad could embarrass you in front of all your friends, he's that kind of dad.
It's that opening of Into the Spider-Verse where it's like dad's on
100%.
just like
100%. Yeah.
I'm not leaving.
Same exact vibes, and it which is really really funny. And so like there's just like all of these really cool like bigger world connections of these characters, and that create this unique class. And like also on top of that is that because like basically with Class 7 or like the Thor's military academy where they go to school, the classes are separated between nobles and non-nobles, and Class 7 is a combination of the two of all classes. So you don't have to be like so it's like there's nobles and non-nobles that like interact together, and it shows like kind of like class disparity and like where like these characters engage with each other. And yeah, it's a really cool like melting pot of characters for sure that I really really enjoy. I do like the Daybreak crew as well, but I'm not like really there yet with them the way I am with the other. I think that I like Daybreak and the kind of things that are happening more than Cold Steel as an arc, but I think that like the characters don't really mesh together as well. And maybe that's just because like from the get-go it's like, hey, here's Class 7 and here are all these characters and here's like their backgrounds, and that's all kind of like brought to you in the forefront. And I'm not saying that these characters, like the other characters in Daybreak, don't like, you know who they are and you know what like where they come from, but like they like ultimately there will always be some sort of like big picture stuff. And I don't think either like one, they don't really have big picture stuff as of yet from the first game,
Sure.
or it's just not as interesting. It's not as like to me as previous arcs.
Do you think that's either because it is like an ongoing thing, you don't really see the full picture yet, because it's literally just the one so far, right? And 2 is about to come out for Daybreak.
Yeah, so I think how they're like setting this up this time around, because like with the Erebonia arc, even though it is considered the 4 games, it's kind of 2 and 2, where there's like Cold Steel 1 and Cold Steel 2, then there's a time skip, and then there's 3 and 4. Still the same cast, but it's still like it feels different, and and so I think like so after Daybreak 2, there's Kai no Kitsuki, which came out in September in Japan, and then there's probably going to be Kai no Kitsuki 2, which is the end of the Calvert arc. So it's like, yeah, maybe after all 4 of those games, I'll feel differently, but I think that they renamed the series like that those games for a reason, and I think that there's going to be more like a series at large players at play than just like the Daybreak crew, if that makes sense. So again, I might feel differently by everything's like said and done, but as of right now, I think like I honestly think it peaked at Sky and then it's like slowly declined over time, but still better than most JRPGs. Like it's a
like
high
bar
incredible.
across
100% agree. Yeah.
Well, it's
100%.
it's like whenever talking about like Zelda games where it's like the worst Zelda game is still like a 7 out of 10, like great game. And there's only a couple that like even get that much hate,
get that low, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Phantom Hourglass, and I don't know. I think Spirit Tracks has some fans. Anyways, yeah, a series in general that I love for casts, like I think is like a strength across all of them, but in a bit of a different way, is Tales. Overall, like Tales is not like my favorite franchise. You know, there's things about it that are kind of give and take. It's a very trope heavy series in general. Like it always tends to be very heavy into whatever like anime tropes and even just JRPG in general. Like it just kind of soaks them a little bit. But something that I really think they consistently pull off very well in the majority of them uh, is building up the cast and their relationships with each other. And part of this is because of just literally the way the games are made. There's this heavy focus on skits where, whenever you're exploring and out doing stuff, there's these optional skits you can view, and they're usually just like a quick, like, here's characters just talking to each other. Rarely do they have any kind of major bearing on the plot other than maybe seeing a character's like personal reaction to something that just happened in the story. But it gives you all these extra little moments of how all the characters kind of treat each other and interact, and it's giving a lot more fleshing out outside of just what their relevance is to the main story. Like, you're really getting a better full picture of who they all are and how they all relate to each other. And again, gets pretty tropey with it still. Like, a lot of times a lot of them are just like dumb little jokes or references and that kind of thing. But I do think it tends to help really bring the whole cast alive. And my personal favorite, I would say, is probably Vesperia. Like, Vesperia's cast to me really carries that game a lot. Not that it doesn't do other things well, but I've even had a conversation with a couple people that tried playing the remaster. And there are lots of people who will rank Vesperia as like their favorite Tales, or top 3 at least. And I've talked to a few people where they're like, I don't get it. Like, I don't see it. I was going through this game and I don't really know what we're doing or like why I'm going there. And like, I just kind of lost track of the plot. And I get it, because a thing that game does that's very weird is that its plot pacing is very strange, where it kind of gives you an opening plot of why everyone gets to know each other, and then they just kind of hang out for a while and do some stuff, and then the real plot eventually gets started when you're already quite a few hours into the game. But I think why it works for me is because like they're literally relying on like party vibes being why you're into this. Like, you just want to keep playing because you want to see the party interact with one another, and how their personalities begin to form. And there's a whole lot else of what makes Vesperia well, but I just love the overarching way that the way that cast is formed. A large part of it too is the fact that one thing that separates Vesperia from a lot of other Tales games is that usually Tales has like your stock JRPG like teenage protagonist, right? Like, just like the optimistic, I'm gonna save the day, like I can be a hero, oh no, something bad happens and so now I'm gonna be sad, but then I find my power of friendship again. Vesperia's arc is like the main character is already there. Like, he's like mid late 20s, he's already disillusioned, like he is not the optimistic hero. And a lot of the plot is him kind of dealing with other characters that do have that mindset a little more. And then some that are also a bit more jaded. And just the way I think all the characters interact with that personality and how they develop together is just so good. Again, I think Tales in general, like, that's just one of the repeating strengths of that franchise. But I think if any game encapsulates the most for me, it's probably that. Maybe Abyss, like, as a close second. Like, a lot of people really love the Abyss cast, and I get why. Like, it's also really strong. There's just a run of those games where I think that they were really on fire for a bit. Xillia as well. Like, that was kind of the last like really strong one, I think, before there was a little bit of a hiccup for development.
Do you like the Arise crew?
I like Arise. Yeah, I don't love that crew as much. I think I rank it a little lower overall. Like, if I were to do a tier list of like Tales casts, but like they're like upper mid. Probably, yeah. I think the big thing for Arise for me is that it mixed up the combat enough after a gap and like really found its rhythm. Because like a big problem I think Tales had was even when they were making some good ones like Berseria, I think there was just like burnout. Like, if you were keeping up with Tales games, they were yearly for a little while. And there came a point where, I know for me it was Xillia, where I like Xillia a lot, and I think Xillia is like a great game, awesome cast. Like, it like I would rank it as one of the higher ones. But I also finished playing it and went like, I've played this. Like, I've played Tales games, and I know what this is now, like multiple times, and like it just started to feel stale. Even though in and of itself it was awesome, but being like the 7th Tales game you play in a row, you're like, all right, I've played this. And so Arise, I think, did some really good shakeups to the core combat, to its pacing, and also just was, I think it gave everyone a break because we didn't get a new one for a while. Like, Arise was after a pretty good little gap.
Yeah, I feel like Arise was kind of like the soft reset on that series, a big a big jumping point. Yeah, I think we've had our conversations about this game a lot, but I really love the 13 party. I really love the Final Fantasy 13 party. And the reason why I love them is because they fucking hate each other. Those fuckers hate each other. And I think that's super compelling. It's like, hey, like, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we got to do this stuff. And I really love their banter. I really love, and on top of that, I think that they are like, I like flawed party members. Like, I like the characters that are just like, this character kind of sucks, but like, I understand it.
Yeah.
And I really love that because you don't get that very often. You know, when you're talking about like how like a lot of JRPG games are like very straight and to the point, or it's like power of friendship, like that type of stuff. 13 is not that. It's not that at all. And I really love that. And I love Zaz. Like I think that like I love that, you know, because there's obviously the whole stuff with like Barrett being a caricature type character in 7, and 13 like felt like even though I think Barrett's still a great character like writing wise and like things like that, despite like the physical aspects of how they designed that character.
Yeah,
like
and how
I
it was
think
translated originally too.
Yeah, I think Zaz is the best character in 13. I think like he's the best written character, and like he's like, I need to find my son. I'm trying to be a good dad, like that type of thing. Like all these things that you could really like root for. And I also feel like he was like, I think he was the most like realistic character in the sense of like, we can relate to what this guy is going through when all these other characters are doing all this other stuff, because you have like Lightning, who is this very like highly trained person, and Snow is like trying to be this like rebel hero, and like while this guy's like, y'all are crazy, I'm trying to find my son and y'all can help me do that. But you know what I mean? Like he's just like the most like level-headed person in the team, on the team.
So here's what I'll say about Saz and your opinions of him. I 100% absolutely agree. Like I love like that of the things when it comes to 13, like Saz is actually one of the things that I walked away being like, oh, I love this guy though. And a large part of it is because not just within that game, but I think within Final Fantasy in general, like it's very rare that you have the character that goes, what do you guys mean you want to do this extremely dangerous, over the top crazy shit? Like what, like hold on. like everyone else is like ready, and like Hope's just looking to kill Snow any second any chance he gets. Other characters are like, we're gonna go do this, and Saz is just like, guys, I just want to like not die and find my son. Like, what are you all on about right now? Like, where does this even come from? And I love that about him, because like he is a level-headed person in a way that you never really see in these games usually, because they're normally very epic, heroic-minded type characters, and it's like very strong archetypes. And here you have a character that's very much casted as like an everyman who's just forced to be in this position and is like, all right, I guess I'm a part of the crew.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like he does consent to what he's doing, but he's also like, hey guys, let's reel it in. Let's...
Well, especially midway through. Like, I think early on, there's a lot of like, I'm not doing this crazy shit. Like the very beginning, that's kind of when they all split up, and then Vanilla just goes with him. But like, midway through, absolutely he accepts, and there's a lot of character growth for why that happens. But like he I think does depict a very interesting concept that you just don't normally get in those games, where it's not just like the unwilling hero, it's like the I'm just a guy that now has a fiery motorcycle woman, and like, or no, it's a car for him. That's right. It was like
a dune buggy. It was a dune buggy. Yeah. It was
That's
dope.
right. Yeah, the motorcycle was Shiva for Snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I absolutely like I don't know if I'm fully there with you as far as loving the whole cast, but specifically him, that's like my biggest thing I'm a fan of.
I think you need to replay 13. I think you need to like I think you need to replay 13 with my notes in mind.
I've started it twice in the last like 4 years, and it did not go great either time. But I will give it another real try at some point. It's just look, you gotta at least bear with me. The start of that game is rough. Like there's some cool stuff that happens, but like it takes its time at the start, man.
I like the start of the game. I like it.
What's funny, like. It does like the thing that you were like mad at Dragon Quest IV for, which is like, we're going to separate the party and just really drag out this opening as you're going through each person's arc for a while. And
it's different though, because like Dragon Quest is about the hero. And yes, Lightning is the main character, but you do like with Final Fantasy, at least like up to a certain point in the series, like you know that you're gonna want to care about all these characters in a way that I do not think Dragon Quest IV does, in my opinion. Yeah. So like for me, it's just like, oh, okay. And like the thing is like because they do it in Remake, they do it in Rebirth, like where they change the perspective of you're playing different characters. Sometimes they're alone, sometimes they're with someone. Like I like that stuff. Like I don't mind that. So I don't mind when they split apart and like different characters like get to interact with other characters, because like when like they split up and it's Zaz and Vanille, I'm like, what an odd pairing. But it also gives them a great time to flesh out those characters and their relationships with each other, because like in most cases you're not really going to see that,
right?
Because you have like this, you have the character that is like very like grounded and stressed about everything that's happening, and then you have the carefree girl that is just like, visibly. Oh, everything's good, we're having fun, like that type of thing. It's just like, I think that's those are really great opportunities to flesh out the party and things like that. So I really love the 13 crew. Anyone others you wanna mention?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, honestly, this is a topic that, like, I feel like we could revisit this down the line with a whole other list. Like, there's a lot of good JRPGs that are out there with great crews. I want to bring a weird one. I feel like we've gotten some obvious ones in, so let's get a little weird. Suikoden 3. Now, this is weird, because Suikoden is known for, like, you have 108 characters, and they're all massive stuff, whatever. One of the things that 3 does differently is, at the start of the game, you have 3 different main characters to choose from, and you alternate between their stories, and you play them whatever order you want. And so, at least for those opening chapters, when you swap between them, there's kind of like core parties that are identified with those characters, while their plot arcs are really working out until you get to the point where it's like, okay, now go out and recruit frickin' everybody. And look, maybe this is just because of the age I was when I was playing it, but the character Godot, his whole story is him and his crew of mercenaries, and they are the coolest motherfuckers in that game. like you have your other characters that are like, yes, like the chivalrous knights and like the young upstart, like son of the chieftain, and it's like a younger crew of heroes that have a little bit more of that optimism, whatever. And then you have these like jaded professional mercenaries that are also just like cool as fuck. Like main character, like Godot himself is just this older looking guy with an eye patch and like more traditional actual armor. There's like multiple old dudes in the crew. They have like their youngest new member is this quiet, silent type with a gigantic crossbow that just acts as a sniper. Like just the vibes of this group, especially for what you're used to seeing, I think on a lot of JRPGs, was like such a cool group. Like I just wanted to play as him like immediately through the whole game, like right away, because like the vibes of this was so different from everything else. And they even do this like interesting thing too with it, where like, so the party size in that game is normally 6, and so their crew is 5. And at the end of their first chapter, they pick up a character that has like a relation to one of the other main characters. But they're a little bit more the archetypical like young character who's maybe a little more naive and optimistic and whatever. And so there's a really interesting way of how they play with that, of like them picking her up and kind of making her their new 6th party member and building that over time. Just maximum swag for that crew.
Okay. I want to talk about Fire Emblem Awakening and what a fantastic crew of characters that is. Again, like I'm sure people would be like, "Oh, what about this Fire Emblem?" Like, I have played Fire Emblem Awakening onwards. I haven't played anything pre-Fire Emblem Awakening. I would like to change that. Huh?
You played 2?
Yeah, but that was the remake. I played the remake. Yeah. I really, really love this cast. Like, obviously some characters more than others, but like I think that I am like really surprised that even to this day there are just like characters that like random character conversations from like the 2nd generation when you like can have kids and stuff that I still remember. Like just like bizarre, like absolutely should not be in my brain, but they are because of just how much I love that game.
Yeah.
There's like Crom and Robin. We didn't bring this up during the silent protagonist talk last. Well, Robin isn't a silent protagonist, but like it's the same vibe. And
Yeah.
Robin is such a good protagonist, like so good. And then there's like Lisa, who's like Crom's, younger sister, and then there's Frederick, who's like the giant knight on the horse, like Virion, the archer, like
with the hardest critical line in that whole series, by the way. Pick a god and pray is such an amazing line to say to someone right before you kill them. Like
the thing I really like want to like I mainly want to speak on this party is that like when I think about like certain classes, I immediately think about the character that was associated with that class in this game.
Sure.
Like
yeah,
I'm just like, oh, do you like bow like Virion, or like like axe like Vike, and like it's like it's so cool.
Yeah. I think something Awakening does very well, and this is something a lot of the Fire Emblem strive for, but I do think Awakening pulls it off relatively the best, is every character, they're not like two-dimensional, but they all have a very specific clear shtick right away of like who they are, right? Like Stahl is the perfectly average guy, and it's like a running joke that he's just like, yeah, like I'm the all-rounder, and I'm just like I'm your regular dude. And like everyone has some specific thing like that. But where that ends up being brilliant is that the way that interacts with the relationship system, right? Where you have these characters build those relationships with other characters and have these dialogues, and how they play with, okay, we have these two very specific personalities and that have a very like specific way of thinking and acting. What happens when those two hang out and talk? Like, what does that interaction look like? And I think they really nailed down having very memorable, interesting conversations, because that's the thing that goes up and down through that series. Like in older, I know you said you started Awakening, but going before that, a lot of the older ones, the relationship talks like that were usually restricted for characters. Like it was like these two specific characters can have a relationship because there's some specific reason why they might get along, or they have backstory together, or whatever. They find out they're long lost siblings, like stuff like that happens. And eventually they open it up to being more characters where it's like, okay, everyone can build bonds with everyone. And the first time they do this in, I always mess up the name, the second Radiant game, Path of Radiance.
Radiant
or is it Radiant Dawn?
Radiant Dawn. Yeah.
Radiant Dawn, yeah. Radiant Dawn was the one that opened it up to everybody. And while there are some good relationships, a lot of the Bond conversations in that game suck. Like a lot of them are just like, hey man, you seem cool. You seem cool too. I like the way you swing that sword. Anyways, keep doing your thing. And like, that's it. Like just really weak Bond conversations compared to what was in a lot of previous ones. And so Awakening was this awesome breath of fresh air there, because a lot of people can have, it's not everyone, but it's a lot more than would be in old ones. And they do such a great job with a lot of those interactions. Like 100% agree.
Yeah. Like I remember, I think it was Cordelia. I'm pretty sure it was Cordelia who I had marry Frederick, and their kid was Jerome, and Jerome was also a wyvern rider, I'm pretty sure. And he had a conversation with her mom about like what it means to be a wyvern rider and what it means to take care of your wyvern. I'm like, what a fucking crazy unexpected conversation that's like super compelling and interesting to me. Like and that's like something I still think about. It's like, man, like the conversations that they had in Fire Emblem, it's just like Awakening. It's just next level.
Yeah.
Compared to
absolutely agree with you. Like there are characters and casts I like, not necessarily more, but like for different reasons. But I think Awakening specifically really hit a sweet spot that I don't think any other one has yet. Like there's some that come real close, but like that game really does nail a sweet spot.
I know people really like Three Houses. I think my main issue with that game is that, like, for me and how my brain works, I'm like, oh, I gotta play this game 3 times. You gotta make me like,
or if you really want to,
you want me to play this game 4 times, to like an 80-hour game 4 times to be able to get like understand all these characters,
full picture,
get the full picture. And like I know that people say like, oh, you don't need to do that, but for me, like, and
yes,
what I like to play JRPGs about, like, and interact with these characters, yeah, I do. Like, I do need to play it 4 times. And, like, I don't, and, like, 1, like, the game's too long for that. And 2, like, the game didn't grab me enough to make me really want to do that. Because there's definitely, like, characters that for all the houses, there were characters that I was really gravitating towards, and other characters I'm like, I literally could care less about you. You shouldn't just like, you could just like not exist in this game, and I'd be okay.
Yeah. So I
And
actually
so
do have I did have like a lead up question for you because this is before you brought up Three Houses. I was going to bring it up because I'm like, if we're going to talk casts and Fire Emblem, I just feel like I got to ask you like, which of those houses did you like best? Not even like the story or the vibe or anything, just like that cast.
Golden Deer for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Golden Deer. But the thing was like when I found out that like, oh, the kind of like canon intended route was specifically through Black Eagles, that really turned me off from the game. I was like, that's garbage. That's garbage.
Where have you heard that? I don't know if I've heard.
Well, because like there's two paths.
Yeah.
Only if you do Black Eagles.
Well, yeah, but it's because I mean this gets into spoilers. There's very good reason why that one has two different back halves.
But to me, and how like that works is like, oh, this is like what the like.
Well, what I'll say is this: even though both of them are started from Black Eagles, you're really better thinking of one of those end routes because it's two different Act 2s, right? You're really better thinking of one of them as the church route. It's like you started with Black Eagles, but it's really the church route is what one of those alternatives is. Where instead of any of the houses, you like bro up with the church a lot more. And that one actually is interesting too because it's the one that treats Byleth the most as like the main character. Like the other ones tend to put a little more light on whichever lord for that house.
Yeah.
But
I just kind of like that how they structured all that turned me off from it. But I am excited for whatever the next like Fire Emblem is, and like I do want to eventually play through it one time, just be able to say that I've played it, and because I don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think it's like I just don't like how they structured the story and like and like the choices and stuff. It's like,
I will say too that like second playthroughs can be a lot faster, especially when you New Game Plus it, because you'll just like annihilate battles. But that's also where the day-to-day calendar thing becomes a bit more of a grind because that just adds
it's so long
time between battles, even with the things that speed it up from doing New Game Plus. So like I get that, like I because I did it, but I burned out, doing that for sure.
The last one I want to mention, for me, because again, like you said, this can be a multiple episode topic type thing. I want to talk about the Persona 4 crew.
Yeah, I figured we had to get a Persona in here. I was waiting for that. So
yeah, the Persona 4 crew is my favorite party in the Persona series. I think all of them are great for different reasons. I think the investigation team, the reason why I like them the most, and like I want to preface this that like there's definitely some stuff that Atlas dropped the ball on writing wise with some of these characters regarding like social topics. Not trying to
a lot of Yosuke problems and a lot of
Yosuke and Kanji, for sure. But what I really love about this party is that they actually come across as like normal fucking kids. Like normal, messy fucking kids just trying to figure shit out in a way that Persona 3 and 5 do not feel. Like Persona 3 and 5 feel primarily, not in all cases, because there's like Ken, right, who's like just straight up a little kid, but like a lot of the other characters feel like they're written like as if they're adults, but are actually kids. If that makes sense. Do you agree with that take?
No, like I get it because I feel like as much as I love 3, because I was thinking about this too, and like I think we've had this talk before. Like 3 is my personal favorite, especially now that we have like the kind of cleaned up version of it with 3 Reload. But if I'm thinking in terms of like just the crew, like the cast, 3's definitely runs into some issues, and I think it's because of how they try to fulfill certain archetypes or like go for slightly more bigger personalities with things where it's like, oh, one of these characters is like the heiress of a giant company, and like that's normal. That's like you meet that person regularly, and they do that again in 5. But yeah, 4, they are certainly extreme personalities, but I think the word I want to focus on the most used there is messy. and that feels right there. And that's also a big part of 4's plot. Like 4 is a lot of like take your internalized trauma and like work through that shit and turn it into a superpower.
Exactly.
And like that's like present a little bit in the other ones, but that's like the focus of 4.
I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah,
there is that like and again, like if there's anything I would equate with like being a teenager, it's fucking messy. Like everyone has those memories they don't like thinking about from that era of either how awkward you were, or maybe you were a jerk then and you realize that now in retrospect, or maybe you were just a hot mess, whatever. Like it's a weird time to be a human. And 4's cast absolutely does, I think, capture that the most out of the 3. Like 5 does it a bit with like social expectations, like that's the big thing, is like you versus like society. But I think 4 has a more personal angle with it that definitely resonates more with me.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I think I do think I slightly fall under that umbrella of like, oh, Persona 4 is my first Persona, and because like admittedly, I still haven't rolled credits on Persona 4. I've never finished Persona 4, but I've played a vast majority of it, and I think this is going to be the year where I finally go back and play through it all at some point. But I love that party, and I think that I think I fall going back to I think I fall under the umbrella of like, because it's the first Persona, that is why I love it the most. But I do think that like, just like putting into the perspective similar to like 13 of like, but even I would say even more so in Persona 4, where it's like you got to think about like who these characters actually are as like people, and then like put that perspective into how they are engaging, how they are interacting with other characters, their personalities. And yeah, like I mean, I'm not saying that like uh the Persona 3 and 5 crew don't feel like kids. There's obviously dialogue and things where it's just like, oh, this is what a stupid ass kid would say, for sure. But I just feel like the things that they are talking about and the things that they're dealing with about themselves is just like much more like falls under, oh, this is like, these are kids trying to figure shit out. And this is like a main focus of this story in a way that Persona 3 and 5 aren't, in my opinion. And I do think that there is like an extended level of maturity in a lot, not in all, but like in a lot of parts of Persona 5 that Persona 4 has, but it doesn't really have to do with the party. It's more like the story, because it's like a murder mystery, right? It's a murder mystery happening in this town. And so there are these like violent themes that are happening on top of that. So yeah, I really like this party. Even though like, and this is unpopular opinion, I really don't like Rise. I really don't like Rise. And that's more so of like, oh, like who's best girl type thing. Like when people say Rise, I'm like, you're crazy. But also it's maybe just because like I'm not, and I understand that like it's kind of like a wall for her, where she's like kind of like this girl that like tries to be super flirtatious, and then when you flirt back, it's just like, oh wait, don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? But also it's just like, I'm not about that. Like, you know, I'm not about that for myself. You know, Yukiko's best girl for me. So. But anyway, I really love Persona 4. I really love that party. It's my favorite Persona, and that's that.
Okay. I'll do one more as well, and I feel like we've gotten some really big name ones out of the way. I know my Suikoden one was kind of a weird pull, but like we got a Tales one in here, we got a Persona. I'm going to use this as an excuse to also shout out that, again, if you join our Patreon, you can do monthly Q&As, and a big part of our last one was underrated RPGs. And one that I talk about for a good extent that I think has a great cast is Shadow Hearts Covenant. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with this game, Shadow Hearts it was a PS2 RPG that what's really interesting about it is it has a lot of the JRPG tropes you'd be used to in terms of like it's a turn-based combat. And there are some active elements and stuff mixed in. But it takes place in like our world with a healthy dose of occultism being real, and it has this very like horror vibe to it. You know, it's very like, what if you took Silent Hill and like made like a JRPG out of that? So it's not quite as dark, but like that stuff's there. There's some gruesome scenes in the first one, especially. That's older animations. But anyways, the party in Covenant specifically, this is like best party in a different way, because like we've talked about a couple where we're like, oh, like everyone's relationships are so well done, and like everyone, like the way they develop, like that, all that stuff's great. Covenant is one of those examples where you just have like really big personalities and such a diverse, strange setup of a party, where it's like you have a party member who is a vampire, but he's also super into wrestling. And so like his combat is him doing like high flying wrestling moves, but then he can also turn into a little bat and like do stuff. You have another character who's this old man. Is he literally named Geppetto? He might actually be named Geppetto. I can't remember right now. Yeah, Geppetto. His whole thing is that like he makes dolls and does weird magical shit through them. You have another character that is like literally actual historical person that disappeared. Just like everyone has their own crazy weird shit going on, and what I like about it too is that it's supported mechanically. Something I'm a sucker for is like characters not all working the exact same. Like not just like, oh, this person uses magic and this person has attacks. Like literally give me different ways that they interact with the gameplay. And every member of this party has like weird different stuff that just doesn't work quite the same. Like the main character turns into demons, and like that's a whole thing that you do for combat, where you just go Super Saiyan and pick different demon forms to handle the situation best. Again, Geppetto has the whole thing with how he sets up his dolls. It's just such a interesting way that I think like mechanically the game supports each character just being this whole fleshed out, interesting, weird thing, and makes them so memorable. Like, yeah, it's just like really a delightful little game. It's really cool. Again, like wrestling vampire is just always like a good.
I'm looking into. I was like doing some research. I was like, this game looks sick. Like I want to play. I want to play this game so bad. So I do have a question. This is like not more so about the party, but more about Shadow Hearts in general. So sure. Are there 3 Shadow Hearts games, or there's Shadow Hearts, Covenant, and then From the New World?
Yeah. So the actual full breakdown is there's 4 games, but only 3 of them are called Shadow Hearts. The first game is called Koudelka, and that was a PS1 RPG.
I see that.
And that basically serves as like, that turns into the backstory for stuff that goes down in Shadow Hearts. And Shadow Hearts really starts its own arc where like, okay, now we're going to have these like established plot lines happening. Shadow Hearts and Covenant are very tied together. Like they're kind of standalone in that, yes, it's a new story starting in Covenant, but it's the same main character, and there's a lot of like callbacks to things from the first game. And then From the New World is a continuation, but it's a new main character, and like the whole point of that name is that it takes place in America. It's in the US instead of being in Europe, and also China. Like you're all over the world in the first 2 really, but you never really go to America. And New World is like, it's one of those situations where like if you really, really, really like Shadow Hearts and you just want to play another one, it is there. It is an option. I don't think it really lives up to what the first 2 do. Like I think if you just play like Shadow Hearts and Covenant, and if you want to get Koudelka in the mix, like that's great too. But like those 2, I think specifically feed the most into each other and are like played as duology.
I'm actually looking. I was looking into it, and apparently, I'll have to like double check and then actually confirm this. But it seems like Koudelka is on Vita, and it's on the.
Maybe.
It's on PSN.
I don't know that off the top of my head. That'd be great if it was, because that is a very expensive game. If you want to buy it physically, yeah, that's the game I lucked out on. I literally got it as a gift from a friend who was just like, "Hey, I'm moving to China and I don't want to take all my physical games." And I was like, "Are you sure you don't want to like sell any of these? Because there's
yeah.
Like, I'm not like there's like you could have some funding here. Like if there was some stuff he had Dot Hack like 3 and 4 in the mix. Like there were some expensive titles in there, and I was just like, look, I'm not going to say no, but also, are you really, really sure? like really think about this right now. And that's actually where I got my copy of Shadow Hearts as well, was from him. Yeah.
Dang. Like, I mean, maybe I will have to just buy PS2, and like, I do feel like that there's enough like PS2 games that are stuck on the PS2.
Yeah.
That like I'm like maybe I should just buy a PS2 and
There's a few. There were a lot of RPGs that came out in that time, and I don't like. I know we're having this renaissance of a lot of like SNES and PS1 era stuff getting remade. PS2, I feel like a little more hesitant on what we're gonna see, just because of like either how the rights are tied up or like what's going on. Like I think like Xenosaga maybe has a chance because like Monolith is active and Bandai Namco exists, and they're not like on bad terms. It's just Nintendo owns Monolith now. Um, yeah, like Shadow Hearts, I don't know if they're ever going to do anything. I don't even know who has the rights to this anymore at this point because it
SNK.
was. Is it SNK? Okay,
I think so because the developer was like funded through SNK.
Right.
So I'm gonna assume
That's
that
who it ended up with.
SNK is the
because that company
owner.
doesn't exist anymore, but there are people from it who are like working on a Kickstarter game under a new name. Yeah, lots of PS2 RPGs that are cool.
Oh no! So in 2002, Aruse acquired Seknoth and renamed it Nautilus. Under that name, the company developed 2 more Shadow Hearts games. So Shadow Hearts Covenant was under the name Nautilus.
Yeah, and the publisher was Aruse for Japan at least, and Midway Games was the publisher for the US. That is not a name I would have assumed, but there you go.
Huh. So yeah, I guess like that company owns that, but I don't know. What
yeah,
where it's at now. So
well, Saknoth stopped existing in 2009, so that's already a problem.
Alrighty. Well,
anyways, it's a really cool party. And if you ever get the chance to check that game out, again, like I don't think it's necessarily the most like deep one in terms of relationships, but in terms of just weird, cool shit, make it a part. Like I love weird party members. Like that's a thing that I'm into sometimes. Like just give me like I need a weird little guy, you know?
Yeah. It looks like it's on Vita. I'm looking on How Long to Beat, and there is a platform for Vita. So it looks like that is the case. It's on PlayStation, PS3, and Vita. So
there you go.
Through the PSN digital stuff. So yeah, I gotta look into that and because there's still I got most of the games that are on the Vita store that like I want to get for when that store finally closes.
Eventually closes. Yeah.
Which
there's a lot of great stuff you can get for cheap.
Because like when that initially happened, when they're like, hey, we're closing the Vita store on this date, I thought that it was going to be when they pushed it back, when they like said like, hey, we're not going to do this. I thought it was going to be like, you're going to give us a year or something.
Yeah.
It's been years since then, and there's still no mention of it. I'm like, okay.
I have absolutely been the same. Like, I'm like, when is it happening? Because yeah, there's a few that I bought a few right when that first announcement happened, but I'll probably get a couple more now just because there's some wonderful classics on there that like the physical is triple digits and you can get it on that store for like $6.
There is I wanted to like boot up my Vita today. I just had the urge to like kind of like move through the store and see if there's any JRPGs I was missing on there. And it was the battery was dead, even though I swear I normally turn it off my Vita when I don't use it. So maybe it just like died over time naturally. I don't know. But I don't currently know where my charger is, so I kind of have to look for that. But I do need to go back on my Vita and check stuff out. You still have your Vita, right?
Oh yeah. I still have my
Which Vita do you have?
The original model. So I got that.
Oh wow, okay. So the OLED screen. I have the Persona 4 dancing one that came out in Japan.
Nice.
Paid way too much money for that.
Probably, but I've been tempted to do that for like some PSPs because there's some special edition PSPs where I look at it, and I actually have a friend of a friend who will like import and restore and that kind of thing. And I know they got in like the Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core one, and I was like, how much were you thinking of dropping that for? And what's the friend discount if there is one?
I want to get the Birth by Sleep one eventually.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, I want to get like all of the Kingdom Hearts themed consoles eventually, but those aren't going up in price or anything like that. Those are just kind of chilling where they're at, so I'm not in a huge rush to like focus on that. But I do want to do it eventually.
Why didn't we hear about your favorite party of Donald, Goofy, and like Jack Sparrow?
It's just not a traditional party to me.
I know,
you know what I mean? So I just like
I get it. Yeah.
like yeah, I love Sora, Donald, and Goofy. Like, you know what I mean? But I don't consider that like a traditional party in the way that we're discussing. So
They don't always have Disney long established cartoon characters being party members.
yes, exactly. But everyone, that is our episode of Party Chat. We hope you all had a good time listening to us talk about the news, what we've been playing, and what are the best JRPG parties. Part one, probably.
Probably.
And but you can find me on socials at CamFinalMix. Kev, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Kevin Kenson. That's just what I use basically everywhere. Blue Sky, YouTube is the main focus, of course, where you can catch my videos. Lots of Switch stuff coming. So, yeah.
And you can follow us in the podcast specifically on socials at PartyChatJRPG. I'm Cameron. That's Kevin. Until next time, talk to you later.
Later.